mother in a torn tent selling her car tires for food, a soldier frozen in a split second before death, and a monk sitting in traffic as flames rise around him. These are photos from history that will completely change your point of view. In March 1936, photographer Dorothy Lange was driving through California during the Great Depression. She passed a sign for a pea pickers camp. She almost kept going, then she turned around. And that decision gave us one of the most famous photographs in American history. She met a 32-year-old mother named Florence Owens Thompson. Yeah, that woman is 32. Oh God, that makes me feel old. The crop had failed. The family was stuck there with no money coming in. Lange took a few photos inside their makeshift tent. The one everyone knows shows Thompson staring off into the distance while two of her kids press their faces into her shoulders. A baby is in her lap. She looks more than tired. She looks completely drained, worn down. Lange later said Thompson told her they were living off frozen vegetables and birds that children caught. It even sold their car tires to buy food. The photo was published in newspapers within days. After it ran, federal aid was reportedly sent to the camp. For years, nobody knew the woman's name. Thompson didn't speak publicly about it until 1978. She later said she never received money from the image and felt that it just benefited everyone but her. Still, this one photograph became the face of the Great Depression. Most people don't realize the famous Iwo Jima photo wasn't the first flag raised that day. On February 23, 1945, during the Battle of Iwo Jima, Marines had already put up a smaller flag on Mount Suribachi earlier in the morning. Commanders wanted a bigger one so it could be seen across the island. Associated Press photographer Joe Rosenthal happened to be there when the second group of Marines lifted the larger flag into place. He didn't carefully stage this. He later said he basically turned and shot the frame as they pushed the pole upright. That's the image that ran in newspapers just days later. The battle had been brutal. It lasted from February 19th to March 26, 1945. Nearly 7,000 US soldiers were killed. More than 18,000 were wounded. Japanese losses were even higher. The photo won the Pulitzer Prize in 1945. It was used for war bond drives. It became one of the most recognized images of World War II. What's interesting is that the identities of the men in the photo were corrected multiple times over the decades. The Marine Corps conducted investigations in 2016 and 2019 that officially updated who was actually in the picture. On December 24, 1968, the crew of Apollo 8 was orbiting the moon when something unexpected happened. As the spacecraft rotated, Earth suddenly came into view over the lunar horizon. Astronaut William Anders grabbed a camera and took the shot that would later be called Earthrise. This was the first time humans had traveled that far from Earth. Apollo 8 was the first crewed mission to leave Earth's orbit and circle the moon. The crew was Anders, Frank Borman, and James Lovell. They weren't even scheduled to photograph Earth at that moment. It just appeared in the window. When the image was released, people saw something they'd never really seen before: Earth, and it looked small. It sounds dramatic now, but it really changed how people felt about their place in the universe. I mean, seeing Earth zoomed out like that, a ball surrounded by total blackness, it really shifted people's perspective. A lot of historians have said the photo helped give rise to the environmental movement that grew in the late 60s and early 70s. The first Earth Day happened in 1970. In May 1945, Soviet photographer Yevgeny Kalday climbed onto the Reichstag building in Berlin with a large Soviet flag he'd brought with him. The building had already been captured by Red Army forces during the Battle of Berlin. He asked a few soldiers to raise the flag again so he could photograph it. The result is the famous image of a Soviet soldier planting the flag above the ruins of the Reichstag. It became one of the defining pictures of the end of World War II in Europe. Later, it came out that the image had been edited a little before publication. In the original negative, one soldier appeared to be wearing multiple watches, possibly taken as loot, so editors removed one of them. They also added extra smoke to make the scene look more dramatic. The Battle of Berlin lasted from April 16th to May 2nd, 1945. It was one of the final major battles in Europe before Germany's surrender on May 8th. Even though the photo was staged and edited a little bit, it still became the Soviet Union's symbol of victory over Germany. In early 1937, the Ohio River flooded Louisville, Kentucky. About 70% of the city ended up underwater. Thousands of people were displaced. Photographer Margaret Burke White, working for Life magazine at the time, took a photo during the disaster that still stands out today. It shows this line of black families waiting for relief supplies. Behind them is this giant billboard showing this smiling white family in a car, the text reading, "World's highest standard of living. There's no way like the American way." The photo was published in Life on February 15th, 1937. Burke White hadn't crafted any commentary, she didn't need to. The image really spoke for itself. That contrast between the billboard and the people in line says everything, highlighting that gap between the American ideal being advertised and the reality many people were living through during the Great Depression, especially black communities in the South. In 1936, during the Spanish Civil War, photographer Robert Capa took a photo that appeared to show a soldier being fired at the exact moment he collapsed. The image first ran in the French magazine Vous and later in Life magazine. The soldier is falling backward, rifle slipping from his hand. For years, it was seen as one of the most powerful war photographs ever taken. Then people started questioning it. This debate started about the scene possibly being staged. Some researchers said the location didn't match the original caption. The identity of the soldier has also been controversial, but a lot of people believe he was a man named Federico Borel Garcia who did die in 1936. There's still no final agreement about whether the photo captured a real death in that instant or was posed for the camera. Either way though, it changed war photography. It made people feel like they were witnessing combat up close, and that feeling was hard to forget. Many of you probably recognize this image. It was used as the cover of Rage Against the Machine's self-titled album. The story behind it is incredible. On the morning of June 11, 1963, traffic in Saigon was backed up near the Cambodian embassy. Out of nowhere, a small group of Buddhist monks and nuns stepped into the street. One of them, a 66-year-old monk, sat down cross-legged in the middle of the road. Another monk poured gasoline over him. Moments later, he struck a match and set himself on fire. Photographer Malcolm Brown was there because he'd been tipped off the night before. Just one reporter among several told to expect an act of protest. His photograph, taken as the monk sat still while flames engulfed him, instantly spread across the front pages of newspapers around the world. The act was aimed at President No Dinh Nhiem's government, which was heavily Catholic, been cracking down on Buddhist practices for months, shutting pagodas, banning flags. They even opened fire on peaceful protesters. President John F. Kennedy reportedly said, "No news picture in history has generated so much emotion." No Dinh Nhiem's government fell within months. Brown won the Pulitzer Prize the next year, and that single image of the monks sitting in this sea of fire, and it became one of the most famous symbols of protest in history. On June 5th, 1989, the streets near Tiananmen Square in Beijing were eerily quiet. The night before, Chinese troops had violently cleared the square, killing and arresting protesters who'd been calling for democracy and reform. And the next morning, as tanks rolled down the street, this guy in a white shirt carrying 2 shopping bags just walks into the road and stands right in front of them. Photographers Jeff Widener of the Associated Press and Stuart Franklin of Magnum Photos were watching from nearby hotel balconies. Others caught video footage showing the man stepping up repeatedly as tanks tried to move around him. Eventually, he climbed onto the lead tank to speak to the soldiers inside. No one knows what was said. But to this day, nobody knows who this man was or what happened to him. Chinese authorities wiped all mention of him from the country's media. Outside of China, though, the image became one of the most famous moments ever captured on film. December 7th, 1972. The crew of Apollo 17 had just left Earth's orbit on their way to the moon. When they turned their camera back toward home, what they saw was Earth fully lit by the sun, floating against the blackness of space. Harrison Schmitt snapped a picture which became known as the Blue Marble, one of the most iconic Earth photos ever taken. Unlike earlier space images, this one showed the entire planet. There were no shadows, it was all there. Oceans, clouds, and continents swirling together. It's so detailed. You can even see the southern tip of Africa, the swirling storm over the Indian Ocean. NASA released it a few days later, and it immediately made its way into newspapers. It arrived right when the early environmental movement was gaining traction. The Clean Air Act and Clean Water Act had just been passed in the US. The first Earth Day was only 2 years old. So people suddenly saw with their own eyes how small and almost delicate the planet really looked. And sticking with this theme to close out, take a look at this photo. You see that small little dot near the center of the frame? That's our planet. In 1990, after more than a decade in deep space, NASA's Voyager 1 was about to leave the solar system. The spacecraft had finished its mission, flybys of Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, and was headed into the void. But astronomer Carl Sagan asked NASA to do one last thing before signing off. Turn the cameras around and take one final picture of Earth. On February 14, 1990, Voyager did just that, from nearly 3.7 billion miles away. That little dot is less than 1 pixel wide. Caught in a streak of sunlight bounced across the camera lens. You want to talk about feeling small and insignificant? This image is a prime example. Everything humans have ever known, every civilization, every life, every story we've ever told, it's all contained in that tiny little dot in the distance. It kind of takes your breath away. With all that said, I've been your host, and I will catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next video.